Key Creates, bringing you journal inspiration, stickers and playful creativity. Today's video is a special one because it's part of the Junk Journal July challenge, which is hosted by Meg Journals and Get Messy, and it's such an exciting challenge. If you haven't checked out any of the other videos yet, definitely go and have a look because there's a video for every day. Each one has an exciting prompt, and my prompt today is contrast. I'm going to be working in this, which is my onion skin journal, and I'm going to be showing you a few different ways in which I experimented with contrast in my journal, and hopefully it will help you with some ideas as well. I'm going to be starting with the first thing that sprang to mind, probably the most obvious when it comes to contrast, and that is working in black and white. So I've got some black and white origami paper, some witchy paper from my shop, some old music paper, and some washi tapes that have like mostly black and white anyway. It would honestly be kind of impossible for me to work totally in black and white because I just love colour too much. But I started with this paper. I wanted to kind of add it to one side and then not on the other, keeping the contrast in mind. And then it's pretty hard for me usually to leave gaps because I just like to fill everything. But with this one because I had the whole page covered on one side, I wanted to leave quite a big gap on the other side. So I just put the black and white paper in these kind of torn strips and only in the corners. Then I cut this music paper into a circle and popped that onto the pattern paper side. I thought that had a really nice contrast, how it stood out. I'll talk a little bit more about contrasting shapes later on. And then just added some more texture to the page using some of these black and white washi tapes and little strips of paper. I outlined the circle and then I kind of jump back and forth now between different pages, trying out different ideas for contrast as they come up. So we will come back to this page in a moment. But adding that circle to the page really reminded me of this, which is a journal spread that I made for, I think, Junk Journal July last year, and the prompt was pop of colour. And this has a similar like black and white page with a colour circle in one area, and I thought that had quite a nice contrast, so I wanted to show you that in case that gave you any ideas for contrast as well, because a pop of colour against the black and white I think can work really nicely. And that kind of leads us on to this next idea, which is to use contrasting colours or clashing colours, which are colours that are on the opposite side of the colour wheel from each other. So I started with orange and blue, which is honestly a combination that I would never ever pick. And I did spend the majority of the time making this spread kind of thinking that I really didn't like how it looked. But that's why I really like this challenge, because one, it challenged me to make with things that I would never make with, like this colour combination. And two, it is always good to serve as a reminder that the visual aspect of journaling isn't as important as you think. That sounds kind of crazy, obviously it's a visual art, but I more meant like the end result doesn't matter that much. You spend a lot of time sometimes worrying about whether it's going to turn out to be aesthetically pleasing, and then you realise that the point of it was how you enjoyed the process along the way. So I actually did end up liking this in the end anyway, but somewhere during the process I realised that that doesn't matter, and I just started to have fun with, you know, experimenting with something I never usually do, which is always nice and refreshing. And I enjoyed the kind of challenge of using clashing colours so much that I tried out this combination as well, yellow and purple, which I do like a little bit more, probably closer to the colours I'd usually use. And I have this stationery pattern paper from my shop that worked really well with it, with the purples and yellows in there. If you couldn't already tell, I really was making it up as I went along with this one. I just had some ideas kind of in my head of contrasting things I wanted to try, and then I was just organically letting stuff happen. So while I was making the yellow and purple page, I started thinking about how it'd be interesting to have a contrast of textures, seeing as the paper is like so smooth. Could I add some texture to make a little bit of contrast on the page? I wonder how many times I say contrast in this video. It's starting to sound like it's not a word. So I did experiment with these little pieces of washi tape cut into strips, and then these washi petals that I have. It kind of added a little bit of texture to the page, but not that much, and I do think that's something I'd like to experiment more with in the future. I didn't really get a chance to experiment that much with contrast between textures, but I thought it'd be fun to show you some of the textured areas in my other journal pages, just in case that's an avenue you want to go down and you want some ideas for how to add texture to the pages. So I've got things like string, wax seals, really thick paint that I've literally peeled off a palette and stuck on the page, rough, thick handmade paper, those little foam stickers you can get in like kids craft and you can cut them out and stick them on, glitter, collage, more thick paint here. So there's a lot of options for texture, and playing around with really super textured pages like this, having one area of smoothness to kind of contrast with, I think that'd be such a fun experiment. Okay, now let's talk a bit about shape. So we're back to this spread, and I had cut the corners off this, and I liked the contrast between the angular lines and the round circles. So I leaned into that with the stickers I chose. I chose 2 circle stickers and a diamond sticker. I made sure to put them on contrasting backgrounds, and I just like the idea of having contrasting shapes and wanted to mention that because I think that could be a fun thing to play around with and lean into even more. Also kind of shape related, when I went back to these spreads I ended up ripping a lot of paper off because one of the things that I really like about working in this journal is the translucency of the pages. So in this onion skin journal you can kind of see through to the other pages, and I love that. I feel like it adds so many layers to the pages that I make, and sometimes I just leave blank pages in the middle because I like how the other side looks. I realised that by using those contrasting colours I had basically covered the entire page and I'd sort of lost some of that translucency that I like, so I did go through and tear a lot of pieces off the page. Like, look at the back of that, it just looks cool anyway without even doing anything to it. So I tore off some paper here and here, just made some gaps, and I feel like that kind of counts as contrasting shapes as well because now these pages have little windows of transparency to look through. This also made quite a bit of mess, but I've kept all of these little ripped up paper scraps to add to some recycled paper, which I think will be very fun and colourful. To carry on decorating these pages, I picked out some stickers that I wanted to use. Sometimes I go through, pick out stickers and use them as I go, and sometimes I do this, which is to collect stickers I think will go with the spread and kind of peel them off, put them somewhere. On here I've just put them on a little bit of plastic, and then I go through and decide where I want to put them. The stickers that I'm using for this spread are from these sticker books, which are the Antiquarian Sticker Book Bibliophilia, the Antiquarian Sticker Book Imaginarium, and the Botanist Sticker Anthology. Really love those. Gathering stickers for a journal spread is honestly one of my favourite things to do, and there are so many ones that met the colour combination. I don't know if this is really contrasting shapes as much as it is just contrasting colours again, but I wanted to show you some of these stickers that I'm using because there's such nice combinations of blue and orange for this spread. Like, look, there's literally a butterfly with like an orange wing and a blue wing. It felt like some of these were just meant to be on this page, and it's nice because they're not stickers I really would have used before because, like I said, they're not really my usual colour combination, so this was fun to do. If you're ever in doubt of what to do next, you can't go wrong with adding loads of stickers, in my opinion. And then I did a similar kind of process for the purple and yellow spread with some stickers I thought would go nicely and some contrasting shapes where I could, like this circle and square. And sometimes when I'm adding stickers I do something which some may consider barbaric but I find fun, which is to cut one of the stickers completely in half and then use it on different sides of the page. And I think this works particularly well for today's prompt because having part of the sticker on one side and part of it on the other makes this kind of, I guess, contrast between the sticker itself and the edge of the page because it just goes completely off the edge. So you'll see I do that for a few. Here's some more flowers that I cut in half, and I think that's a fun thing to experiment with, especially if you've never tried it before, because it can feel kind of scary to cut a sticker in half. I know that sounds silly, but it can, and then once you do it it's like, wow, freedom. You can also tear them in half, and that's really nice because you get the nice like torn edge. I do that a lot. And just when you think I'm done with stickers, you know I can't help but dive into my own stock. So I used some stickers from my shop as well, like these doors, because there was some good purple and yellow ones, and some clocks from this Time Flies sticker sheet. I also decorated with some smaller stickers. I have these little bird stickers that Megan or Manning Makes bought me from Japan, so if you're watching, Meg, thanks, I'm still using loads of the stuff that you got me. And then some of the little glitter dot stickers that I like to add, and I picked those out in the contrasting colours that are on the page but tried to put them in areas where they would stand out instead of blend in. So this is how the pages are looking so far as a kind of check-in. So we've done some contrasting colours, some contrasting shapes, some little dots and stickers and extra embellishments, and then the next bit would be when I would usually write all over the pages and literally fill in any gap possible with writing, which I don't do exactly, you'll see. I decided that maybe the next idea could be a contrast in lettering of some sort, so that's what I'm going to attempt, and hopefully it will inspire you to give it a go as well, because there's probably better ways to do it than what I did, but this is just like my first attempt at trying out contrasting lettering. So I did some like bubble writing of the word contrast in black and white, and I tried to do contrasting shapes within this as well and have like some letters on their own, some in lowercase, some in uppercase, some in circles, some in squares. It's like a cocktail of contrasting ideas. So I made this as kind of like a title and cut it out and stuck it onto one page, and then made another title to say Junk Journal July on the other. I put the writing onto white paper to try and make it stand out a bit more, and drew a little board around it, and the idea was kind of that these would be like the standout title lettering, like bubble letters, easier to see, and then the rest of the writing on the page would be small, like messy handwriting that you can't really read that much, so there's like a contrast between these big bold letters and this messy writing. I really wasn't sure what to write on this blue and orange page, so I picked out a poem by Mary Oliver called I Go Down to the Shore, and I kind of picked it because it was so short, because I'd usually want to fill up the entire page and write a lot, but I just wanted to have a go at leaving space and writing very simply, with no fancy lettering, a little poem onto the page. So I did, on the light background, just some black pen, and then on the blue background I wrote the letters onto white sticker paper and cut them out so they would stand out a little more. I added some doodles, but I really made sure that I didn't fill up the page as much as I usually would, which takes me to the next idea, which is getting out of your comfort zone. And that is, the idea is that it's a contrast because it's a contrast to what you would usually do, so challenge yourself to do something you wouldn't usually do. For instance, on this page I would usually fill up that black strip that you see with loads of white stars, loads of white dots. I'd draw stripes everywhere. I would have carried on writing and not just filled in the rest with dots. Like, to anyone else this might look full, but to me I've left quite a lot of space, a lot more than I usually would, and in a way that's like a contrast to what I would usually do. And that's the same with this page, where my instinct is to just cover it in writing, but I didn't know what to write. And I thought, why am I forcing myself to write something when I don't have anything to write? Like, you've got to make your journal work for you and not the other way around. I don't know who said that, but it always sticks with me. So I decided that in a contrast to what I would usually do, I just didn't do any writing on this page at all, and I just filled it in with these little patterns. I coloured some in to carry on the little black and white theme, and yeah, I just basically had a fun time doodling. And this is the sound from the video when I initially recorded it. It feels strange. I just want to put more dots there. I want to do that, but I'm going to actually challenge myself to stop there. So I wanted to add writing to this one, but I didn't. Contrast to what I usually do. I wanted to fill up more space in this one, but I didn't, as another contrast to what I usually do. It kind of feels weird, I'm not going to lie. But maybe it's a good exercise for me to not have to feel like I have to fill every single inch of the page, because it does take a long time. And like, it's just supposed to be fun, and I enjoyed the process. I love the contrast on this page, even though it isn't one of the pages, it's just the pages in between. But this is why I love this transparent journal, because it's so cool. I feel like that one's actually got better contrast than any of the ones I've put together, but I'm going to leave those blank. I think I like them like that. And then the black and white page, which I did challenge myself to not quite fill up the space there, so that's a bit of a contrast to what I'd usually do. And it was in that moment of challenging myself to not fill up the space like I always do and just seeing what it felt like that I thought about this page again. This is the sticker bombed border that I made for my Junk Journal January video about borders, and I never knew how to finish it off. It kind of felt like pressure, so I decided to literally just write some words in the middle. I put minimalist maximalism because that's what that page felt like to me, and literally from writing that and just seeing what it felt like to leave the space, a new idea was born, and that was a contrast between aesthetics. I just thought, wouldn't it be a fun experiment to play with two different aesthetics that I like and contrast them against each other? So I made the left-hand page my kind of pink, purple, childish, playful, whimsical kind of aesthetic that I like, and then on the other side, kind of antique, brown paper, vintage, ephemera, old-fashioned kind of aesthetic. I quickly wrote some words that kind of went with this aesthetic on one side, and then some words that went with the other aesthetic on the other. I don't know how well it came across because I kind of did this one quite quickly. It was sort of the end of a long journaling session, but I'm glad I got this idea down because I think it's something that I'd like to experiment more with in the future, and maybe you'd like the idea of making a journal spread where you have a contrast between two different aesthetics as well. So that's a kind of roundup of my ideas for how you can add contrast to your journal spreads, and some little examples of how I played around with that. I know this has definitely opened a whole other avenue of ideas for me, and I hope that it has for you somehow as well. It was so much fun to play with contrast today. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much if you've watched all the way to the end, and thanks again to Meg Journals for including me in this amazing challenge. I'll see you next time, and until then, happy journaling. Bye!